The summer heat in Queens pressed against the cracked pavement like a smothering blanket. It was the mid-1980s, and crack cocaine had erupted from underground corners into public squares. The clean lines of stoop-side storefronts gave way to doorways bathed in the dull neon of open-air drug stalls. And at the dark, menacing center of it all stood Lorenzo Fatcat Nichols, a man who sold more than drugs. He sold fear. He sold control. Everyone knew Fatcat. He wore expensive suits and thick gold chains. He offered kids $2 to run messages. He made deals behind closed windows. He had eyes everywhere. When he entered a block, economic tension stiffened into silence. Rival dealers backpedaled, girlfriends paused phone calls, and parents tugged children indoors. By 1987, Nichols had built something like a kingdom in southern Queens, along Jamaica Avenue, Rockaway Boulevard, and the gritty stretch of Linden Boulevard. His was a system calculated to extract as much profit as possible from perpetual addiction. His bookmakers, his distributors, his enforcers worked in coordinated violence and secrecy. Dealers who talked too much disappeared. Informants lost their lives in ways that left no identification, wrapped in duffel bags tossed in vacant lots. Even the rivers swallowed bones. Fatcat was arrested multiple times for trafficking charges. In 1987, he landed in federal prison. He sobered the empire temporarily. But in 1997 he walked out paroled. And the nightmare revived. On his return to the same city that had once led his downfall, Nichols wasted no time reclaiming control. Like a man picking up a job he'd once paused, he re-established contact with old cell phones, made quiet calls to lieutenants, and resurrected the same corner operations. Over time, gunshots resumed in the night. Children were taught to duck. Banks relocated ATMs. Local clergy began praying for peace. In 2002, the State Parole Board assigned Brian Rooney, a respected and diligent parole officer, to Nichols's file. Rooney had a reputation for toughness and honesty, qualities needed for a man responsible for overseeing someone like Fatcat. He was polite, thorough, afraid of no one. So when Rooney vanished one crisp October night, alarm bells tolled across precincts. His car was left on a Queen street, driver's door open, blood pooled inside, and his personal gun missing. He was declared missing, presumed dead. No footprints, no cameras, no ransom note. Just silence. Inside that silence, everyone assumed the same. Nichols did it. Detective Maria Vega was among the first to arrive at the scene. She had spent years on violent crimes and narcotics cases. The sight of that car, Rooney's first name printed on the door with fettered weight, pressed despair into her soul. She examined the ground. No DNA. No signs of struggle. Just a missing man, and a massive suspect no one dared name in public. But naming Nichols began the war. Parallel to the NYPD's investigation, the FBI's Special Agent Paul Henderson started building a federal case. He knew that federal charges like racketeering, witness intimidation, and organized crime conspiracies would prevent reduced sentences. He ordered surveillance on known affiliates. He seized burner phones. He shadowed lieutenants. It wasn't long before agents compiled 3 glaring facts. 1. Certain burner phones were traced to belongings belonging to Nichols shortly before Rooney's disappearance. 2. Gang logs and intercepted calls pointed to plans, whispered threats, and possible involvement in getting rid of a problem. 3. A secret ledger found in a drug stash house, named Rooney as traitor number 1. Soon, the lines blurred between Queen Street guilt and federal felonies. As an operation was planned, violence intensified on the streets. In retaliation or desperation, or just fear, Nichols's enforcers riddled rival corners with gunfire. Innocents were hurt. Local hospitals overflowed. Families locked windows. Cotton blinds bore scorch marks. The city wondered, How had drug war escalated so quickly that corridors of children's laughter became hunting grounds of bullets? Among the casualties was a youth basketball coach who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Another was a grandmother running errands. Rumors filled town that someone in my mother's senior group was shot instead of Nichols's target. Names blurred. Faces faded. In this violent chaos, the feds offered a deal. One of Nichols's trusted lieutenants, tank-top-clad street-level runner, found himself facing charges. The deal was simple. Testify in exchange for life protection. The man agreed reluctantly, calling the move betraying the streets. He agreed to be protected by rookie officer Eddie Byrne, a cheerful new cop who volunteered for witness detail. Eddie was in his 20s, determined, black curls cropped short, a first-generation son from Queens himself. He wore his uniform with honor, and a realization that justice might be personal this time. On the day Eddie was scheduled to escort the lieutenant into court, they left a safe location and drove north. In a Queens street lined with drab apartment blocks, Eddie's car was ambushed. Gunshots burst through the driver's window. Eddie never drew breath after that second shot to the temple. The lieutenant stumbled out, soaked in the aftermath, half delirious. He survived. He named Nichols and his network. It was the final piece needed, but at the cost of a life. In the wake of Eddie's death, the city's outrage cracked open formal investigations. The NYPD launched an internal board review. The FBI agreed to unfreeze cold case units. Federal racketeering charges were drafted, including Rooney's murder and Eddie's. Agent Henderson collated thousands of pages of evidence. Phone records, ledger entries, intercepted calls, racketeering origination, witness statements, forensic bullet comparison. Shell casings matched recovered bullets from fires inside Nichols's former stash house. They traced the accused shooters. The murder trial began in 2003. Nichols sat in the glass cage at the front of the court, quiet and impassive. The gathering was thick with grief. Families of innocents, Eddie's father in a suit he rarely wore, Rooney's wife seated at a corner with tearful resolve. The prosecution made their case slow and precise. They replayed intercepted phone calls, Nichols's voice congratulating men after violent incidents. They introduced the ledger as Exhibit A. They showed Eddie's funeral, bought for thousands of dollars by public funds with names pinned to the coffin. They played Rooney's funeral footage, each detail hammering home a legacy of consequences. Nichols's defense claimed the ledger was forged. The phone calls were edited. The witness was paid. And that Eddie was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But they couldn't explain why Noel, Nichols's associate, had transferred $10,000 in cash to a Gator franchise under Eddie's father's name, coincidentally only days before Eddie died. Nor where a blunt coiled wire, intended to strangle his lieutenant, came from, traced chemically to Nichols's Bronx garage. During closing remarks, Prosecutor Vega turned to the jury. If Eduardo Byrne hadn't volunteered, there would be no case. But he gave us a voice. And for that I ask you, give his sacrifice meaning. The jury deliberated 2 hours. The verdict: guilty on all counts. First-degree murder on Rooney. Conspiracy to murder Eddie Byrne. DOJ racketeering counts. Nichols received 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 20 extra years. After the trial, Henderson, Vega, and surviving families held a subtle quiet memorial at Eddie's precinct. Henderson presented Eddie's father with a lieutenant's badge posthumously. Vega handed Rooney's widow a police report copy inscribed with gratitude. "Your husband's faith gave us the courage to act." Years later, Queens is quieter, but not safe. The drug trade changed. A younger generation arose, backed by fresh social media reach. Yet law enforcement shifted too. Tighter witness protections, expanded wiretap provisions, more aggressive cold case closure units. Nichols's name faded from household memory, replaced with whispers. Fatcat, gone. Victims' families adopted new roles. Advocates for safer neighborhoods, plaintiffs in lawsuits against cities for negligent protection, celebrities in crime documentaries. The drug epidemic mutated. But the battle lines remain drawn between harsh kinds of crime and relentless pursuit of justice, even when the cost is a manageable one, remembering those who sacrificed. Nichols, fat and resigned, remains isolated behind reinforced glass. No more allies came. No more calls made. His empire crumbled piece by piece under the weight of named witnesses, and a rookie cop who refused to step aside. Queens may never heal completely. But Cassidy, a teenager from the same corner where Eddie lived, now participates in a neighborhood watch inspired by Eddie's courage. She keeps rosaries on her windowsill, not for prayer but study. She knows the street codes, the warning signs, the traps. She told reporters, "It's not just about cops. It's about us, saying no to fear."